For the Microsoft.NET developers, or for anybody who just wants a free editor on Windows, remember, Microsoft's got their free editors as well. A lot of people assume that you have to have Visual Studio 2010 Ultimate or Professional or, Premium Edition, and you don't. You have to have those paid-for versions. You can always use their free ones. Like, for example, Visual Web Developer 2010 Express, anybody can download and install right from this site, ASP.NET VWD. And if you install Service Pack 1 for Visual Studio 2010, it's a free service pack, it'll give you support for HTML5 and XHTML5. If I open up my Visual Studio while I'm running the Ultimate Edition, it doesn't matter. It's going to be basically the same environment in the Express Edition, except it's just going to have a few less buttons and bells and whistles in it. And inside of here, let's go ahead and choose a project. Let's choose Website 1. There we go. You'll see that I have support for HTML5 over here, as well as XHTML5, and that's because all I did was install the service pack. Before the service pack came out earlier this year, I needed to go ahead and download a special installer through Tools and Extensions, which was the HTML5 CSS3, and it gave me these special markups, but we should never use those anymore because they'll actually clash with Service Pack 1's addition. And if you want it to always be HTML5 from now on, remember you can just do that from Tools and Options, where you can go into the text editor, and under the HTML section, under Validation, you can choose which target you want. You should see these choices come up if you're using Visual Studio. And this does not matter if you use an Express Edition or the bigger flagship product like I'm showing right now. There's also a free extension for CSS3. If maybe you want to use those vendor prefixes like the -moz or the -ms and stuff for some of the CSS3 features, there is an add-on for that available in the online gallery. So you can take a look at the Visual Studio gallery. If you go to the online section, you can see where all these different add-ons are for Visual Studio, and they're all free. So you can take a look at that as well. MVC, remember, when you create a brand new project, it asks you, do you want to use HTML5 or not? There's a little checkbox you can select. And there's that CSS3 extension I mentioned before, which will give you some IntelliSense. Remember, the Web Developer Express Edition is free, and so are all these add-ons. So you can always use this just for raw HTML without having to write any .NET code. You always have the ability to just work with HTML pages. I believe as well, the Adobe Creative Suite can also work with ASPX files. So that's just why I mentioned it. Okay, Uber Geek here, Uber Nerd. When I like to set up my laptops, to be honest, I usually like to use the server edition of Windows. I know Windows 7 is cool, Windows Vista was cool. There's no problem with those, but I'm always installing these server applications on my machine, SharePoint, SQL Server, and I oftentimes install Windows Server on my machine. And because I installed Windows Server 2008, I thought it would be just fine to go ahead and develop HTML5 on my machine. Wrong answer. Problem with Windows Server is I couldn't get any of the codecs to work for playing videos or music. Those codecs have been blocked, or I should say, not installed in Internet Explorer. It's kind of a bummer because I even set up a classroom image for our students, whether they be virtual or local, using Windows Server just because it is a very clean operating system. It's very elegant and does an excellent job of getting out of the way of our applications. But the problem is Windows Server can't play any of the newer media files. So if you want to use the audio or video tags to play audio, music, or play videos, you can't do it in Internet Explorer 9. It's a bummer. Even this last Sunday, it was Easter. And on the Bing homepage, they had these little bunnies bouncing around, and they were animated. But I couldn't see it on my Windows Server machine on Sunday because I was using Internet Explorer 9 on Windows Server. Of course, I could see it on any of the other browsers on my machine, but for some reason, Microsoft decided not to support any codecs in their Internet Explorer browser. So that can be a hang-up. So if you normally install Server like I do, installing Server 2008 R2, and you think, well, I'm going to do some HTML5 development, be careful when it gets to the media stuff. You might have a problem, and then you're going to have to fall back to Windows 7, like I'm currently doing with you guys right now. I had to create a separate image just for this, and for also the class materials. Editors for the Mac. If you're a Mac user, there's a product called Mac Flux you may want to go ahead and buy. You can buy it directly off their site. They're more than happy to help you there, but it may be cheaper at some of the other online stores, so you can take a peek at that. Otherwise, Mac users and Windows users, both of you folks, are probably pretty comfortable working with the Adobe products, the Creative Suite products, and they have excellent support for working with some of this stuff. Excuse me, Dreamweaver is perfect for going ahead and working with your HTML content and CSS, but they've got other tools. For example, the Illustrator can help us with SVG, for example, exporting into different formats. Only problem with Creative Suite, it's not cheap, right? Unless you get a student edition, and of course you want to legally be a student as well, or an educator. So you can get it much cheaper if you buy it as an upgrade versus if you get the full product. So just some things to consider. And make sure that you don't accidentally buy too much more than you need with Adobe, because they're more than willing to sell you everything all at once. So just choose like the Web Developer Suite. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at the HTML5 content tags. Let's get down to some real business here. We've been talking about the history of HTML. Let's take a look at some of the new content plays that come out. Now, the content tags are going to take a little getting used to, because we can treat them very much like the way we treat div tags. They're designed to go ahead and mark certain content and have it be in our page, act as containers. There is a starting point site here, HTML5boilerplate.com. This can give you a great starting page, and you can use it over and over and over as you add more and more pages to your site. Maybe you just want to get the look and feel of HTML5 with some of these new tags. Well, this is free. Anybody can go to this site, HTML5 boilerplate, and download the starting documents. Initializer is another one that's available. Initializer.com will actually create a custom document that you can download. You can choose to check boxes on what tags you're interested in, and then download your custom document. What we have on the screen here, and I hope you folks can read this. I know the font is a little small here. I tried to change my resolution so it'll be easier for you folks to see my screen, but you can see that I have an XHTML document. This is an XHTML 1.0 transitional document. It's got the humongous, ugly doc type at the top going all the way across the screen. You can see it's pointing to loose.dtd, document type definition. And then in the head section, I've got the inclusion of a JavaScript file, obviously jQuery, and I also have the inclusion of bodystyle.css, which is going to be my CSS file. Down below, in the body section, you can see I've got big div tags galore. Div 1, ID equals header 1, class equals header. ID equals nav1, class equals nav. And you can see I've got some anchor hyperlinks in there. I've got my main div, and then inside of that I've got an article 1 div, and then inside of that I have a section div, and then down below I have a footer div. I've got divs all over the place, right? And that's the problem with HTML4, is that there's really no way of classifying the different portions or different parts of our web page. Everything's contained within divs. How do we know what one part of the site is or one part of the page is versus another part? Well, we're looking at the IDs. That kind of gives us a hint, right? Because we gave them meaningful IDs. We're also looking at the classes. We know that, oh, this class is main. Well, we know this is the main section. Oh, this is a section class. I know what that's about, right? Or here's the footer class. I know that's supposed to be the footer. But nothing in the actual HTML tags themselves describe exactly what this is supposed to be. As far as your browser is concerned, this is just a bunch of div tags. Can you imagine a software application which is out there, some spider out there crawling through many different pages, and it comes across this page? How is it going to figure out where the navigation section of your page is? I mean, unless it's got the intelligence to look for NAV somewhere in a class name or the ID, or maybe it has the intelligence to see a bunch of anchor hyperlinks thrown into those A's in there, you know. Maybe it can figure that out, but it really has a tough time distinguishing navigation from content and different parts of content. And this is what HTML5 addresses with some new tags. Div, I was asked this earlier this morning, but div is not going away. Div is still there for us, and sometimes it might still be necessary to use a div tag with HTML5, but I want you to consider the new tags that we have available to us. And as I mentioned before, there's div tags all over the place. Nothing is actually defining anything about what the content really is. And of course, the only way that we know what something is we gave them meaningful names, and then we actually define meaningful style rules in our style sheet based on those style names.